welcome to another episode of MK Indy RX-5 build. Today I'm just going to show a few bits that I'm going to take up to MK Sportscars at the weekend to get them to modify as part of the build. So let's get to it. So here I've got my engine on its engine stand, and then here are a few bits on the floor. So what are we actually going to do? This here is actually the bottom end of the steering column. At the moment this actually goes into the Mazda MX-5 powered steering rack. It needs to go into the Ford Sierra Quick Rack, which is a non-powered rack. So basically what they do is they cut it off, put a new end on it, and actually make that compatible with the new rack. So that's going up. I've then also got the prop shaft here, which gets shortened, so they basically cut it and then re-weld it back together at the correct length for the RX-5 build. It's actually shorter than it is in the MX-5 chassis. And then finally I've got my limited slip diff over here, and very fortunate to have the Euphonic Mark 2.5 as my donor vehicle, so I've got a lovely limited slip diff. And what I'm doing is taking this up so that they can actually modify it. And if you see here, there are a couple of little notches that are actually cut into this actual casting, and that normally is to help this brake in a rear end incident in the MX-5, so it helps some of the crash protection. But what actually that does is when you go and put it into a kit car, certainly if you start running a bit more power later on, it can actually mean that it ends up cracking and breaking the diff here. So what I'm going to actually do is going to take it up for MK Sportscars. We'll end up welding a couple of extra plates just there and just here, and that basically gets it all nice and strong. So what I'm going to do today is basically separate the actual aluminium casing here from the actual steel casing, take all the insides out, give it a good clean up, ready to go up to there. And then finally, the last bit I've got is my engine here, which is on its engine stand. I'm going to take up the sump. So the sump here, you can see coming all the way around, and I'll show you the bell housing end, where you can see here that it actually sticks down slightly from the bottom of the bell housing. Now the floor of the MK pretty much is aligned with the bottom of the bell housing, so this extra inch and a bit ends up sticking out the actual bottom and is then therefore vulnerable to going over speed humps and various other things like that. So what we do, take it up, they basically cut it off here, and then they actually add more material here to actually go and give you the same volume of oil pan, but in a much lower profile. So that is coming off today. I need to basically take all the engine mounts off, take all the bolts off around here, and take the bottom off, give it a good clean up, ready to go. So that is what we're up to. And hopefully today we'll have everything ready, so let's get on with it. Okay, so I managed to get it apart. Actually quite simple in the end. You have a bunch of bolts, 10mm, literally undo them all here, and then actually I just had to hit this with a bit of wood and a large hammer to basically free it up. There's quite a seal on here that had obviously never come apart before, so that basically just needed a good old smack with a hammer. Obviously careful, don't hit it directly, but just with a bit of wood and a mallet, and then eventually it popped off, and I've given it a really good clean in there, so should be good enough for the guys to go and actually do the welding, so very pleased with that. And then the sump has come off the engine. You can see the baffle there. So nice clean sump. You can see here, this is basically the bit that they cut off, and then they have an extra bit of material just here that basically gives you back the volume of oil, but just in a slightly different place. Things to remember: you need the oil pickup tube, because that basically comes and sits like that. So this actually needs to be slightly shortened at the end, which they also do as well as part of the service. And this was very simply, literally loads of these bolts up here into the bottom of the engine, but there's two that caught me out, and there's two that are long like this, and they go just there and just there on the bell housing end. Don't forget to undo those as well, and then it just pops off. And I've just removed, there's a baffle here which I've just put here, that basically sits in there. Just remove that and give it a good clean. So I think we're good to go. So good result. Ready to go to MK Sportscars now. See you next time. Cheers. Bye.